Welcome to the Tony Tonkin Show, a special edition of my show. Don't normally do this on a Wednesday, but we've made an exception because we have this wonderful, exceptional person who's going to have a conversation with us today about all things Christian. So, and today this is just Avery Hilditch talking about his passionate beliefs in religion and how that sits in the world. And I can guarantee you that there's nobody else on this planet who is as well informed and as intellectual as you could imagine in relation to Avery Hilditch. He is an exceptional human being, and he's going to talk to us. And we want to have a discussion and a debate today for all of those people that join, and hopefully some will join in the commentary section here. We already have 5 viewers, which is really good. So have a conversation with us. Challenge Avery. Avery would love to be challenged on all the issues in relation to this particular subject. And I must suggest before we start, please remember to subscribe, ring the bell for further notifications, look at all my other videos. Some of them recently have been quite fun. So I will introduce you to Avery, and I'm going to ask Avery then just to take over the conversation, and we'll see where we go from there. Good to see you, Avery. How are you feeling about this today?
I'm feeling pretty good. Bless you all, by the way.
All right, yep. Good that you did that.
Yeah, good that I did that. I don't know about a conversation. It's probably going to be more of a bit of a rant. People have heard me on this show before. You'll say to me, what do you think's the reason for that? And I'll say, if it wasn't for Christianity saying this, you know, and you and I were talking a few weeks, probably 3 or 4 months ago, and you said, one of these days, you'll have to explain yourself to the viewers. So here I am to try and explain.
So this is the moment. So what the plan is, Avery, will you just talk when people make comments and ask questions or whatever as you're speaking. I will bring them up on the screen in front of you, and then you can respond to them accordingly, provided you can read them around the camera that you've got there. But okay, we've got a couple of people. Sean's back online. Hi, everyone. Good to see you, Sean. And a cynic is there. Hi, one, and also is a new member of the team. So thanks for joining us. And here we go, everybody. Settle back, relax, because here's my friend, my buddy Avery, to let us know where Christianity sits in his life.
How can I put it? Christianity, the sooner it's flushed down the toilet of history where it belongs, the better off the world will be. That is my view on Christianity. My view on all religions, and the things I'm going to say here, in general, apply to all religion, right? But Christianity specifically, mainly because I've spent all my life living in so-called Christian countries, surrounded by so-called Christians, and watching what they do, and I've studied the Bible extensively, and just what they say, what they do, and what the book says, different things. And it drives me up the fucking wall. There's going to be F-bombs dropped quite a few times, I would imagine, on this. Because the biggest thing about Christianity that gets me is the hypocrisy of people who call themselves Christians, who they talk as though they are living by the word of the book, and they're not. You can tell because of their attitudes towards things like the homeless, or towards feeding hungry children, or stuff like that. It's a thing that just drives me up the wall to hear them. Okay, what I started to say was that way back in about 1963, my family moved to Wrexham in North Wales. In Wales at the time, religious instruction was mandatory in school, so we had to attend twice a week a religious instruction lesson where we were taught all about God. And what we had was a Church of England minister who was our teacher, and he was really good. He'd bring in people from other flavors of Christianity. He'd bring in imams from Islam. He'd bring in some Hindu guy or whatever to talk to us about their religions. And I'm sure that he thought that what would happen is we would all listen to all these others, and we'd all hear what he had to say, and we've all come to the rational and correct conclusion that the Church of England was the one true church. Unfortunately for him, we also had an English teacher who taught us critical thinking, and I applied those critical thinking skills because I loved my English lessons. I applied those critical thinking skills to reading a particular book, which was the Bible. And reading that, applying those skills, by the time I got to Leviticus, I was 95% convinced there was no God. And by the time I got to the end of the book, I was 100% convinced. And I've been like that since 1964 time. And nothing has ever come to me, nobody has ever said anything to me that has persuaded me that it's different. Now, I started this by saying about hypocrisy that I see among Christians. That's one of the things that gets me. They, as I said earlier, I think I said earlier, they talk about that they live according to the Bible, and they don't. I can guarantee you that we might have a truly devout Christian watching us right now, and I'll bet you he's wearing clothes of two different fabrics. He's wearing cotton shorts, or a cotton shirt and polyester pants. That's against the Bible, all right? And they've also got people who are saying, my brain just went dead there. They say that they agree with the feeding of feeding the poor and healing the sick and things like that. In Australia, they're damn sight better than they are in other countries, because we're a secular country, and we volunteer more than so-called Christian countries like the United States. A lot more volunteering goes on here per head of population than there is in the USA. I get people say to me, I'll hear people say, I'm a person of faith. To me, that is a question that is, why is that something to be proud of? Because to my view, it isn't. The reason I can see a thing there. I tried to work in my head, my mum's bush when a child till one day woke up and thought, what a load of dribble. Yeah. I've lost my train of thought now.
Sorry, mate, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right.
Going with it.
I think this works a bit better when we're talking rather than me just talking all the time. I was saying about faith. I'm not impressed when anybody says, oh, I'm a person of faith, as if faith is something to be respected. Faith, in my view, and this is a biblically based view, comes from the Bible, right? That faith is a denial of reality. Faith, Hebrews 11:1 says that faith is the evidence of things unseen, the evidence of things hoped for. In other words, faith is wishful thinking. I want there to be a life after death, therefore there is a life after death. I want to see Grandma again in heaven, therefore I'm going to see Grandma again in heaven. It's wishful thinking. There's nothing to support it. It's a denial. It's the evidence of things unseen, right? And people say to me, well, you can't see the air, right? You have faith that the air exists. Well, no, you can actually measure the air, you can quantify it, you can test it and see what it comprises of. Please do the same with God. Right? And they can't. But say faith to me is not something that I think people should be boasting about. As I said, it's a denial. It's believing things with no sound epistemic warrant to believe it. You don't have any justification for that belief.
Avery, can I just interrupt? You did mention before hypocrisy. Can you talk to us about what you think are the greatest hypocrisies that you'll find in religion? Things like talking about loving your neighbour. Right? People, firstly, one thing on that, people talk about the Beatitudes from the Sermon on the Mount as though Jesus invented it. Love your neighbour, do unto others, as though he invented it.
that is written, I can never remember the book, but it was written by the Buddha about 500 or 600 years earlier. It was written down by the Buddha, and those tenets predate him. They've got nothing to do with Christianity, but Christianity has hijacked it. That's nothing to do with hypocrisy. But they talk about loving your neighbour, and yet look how they treat immigrants, right? Your neighbour doesn't mean the person that lives in your house next door. To me, it also means the person that lives in Myanmar or Somalia or, Colombia. Is anybody on this planet, we should be treating them with respect. We don't.
So could you, given that you've just said that, it'd be interesting to know what you think then of the reasons why religion is used from a political standpoint, particularly in the Republicans and National Christians, and the nationalist Christian movement, I guess. Why is that so prominent and evident, and because it's bound in those sort of hypocrisies that you're talking about?
Yeah, they are. And the thing with the Christian nationalists is that they want to impose a Christian version of Sharia on the country. Right? They want to have a religious, a Christian theocracy running the country. And we used to have Christians running a Christian theocracy running the country. They called it the Dark Ages. They called it the Dark Ages for a reason, because there was no progress. There was no. In the days when Christians ran the country, right? People would live to the ripe old age of died in childbirth. The sort of things that the church worked really hard to put a stop to was people learning things. They objected when this is centuries ago, obviously. They objected when a guy called Wycliffe, I think it was, translated the Bible from Latin into English, and he did that so the common person could read it. And they say they stifle progress. Modern day Christians, particularly in the United States, we're talking about here with Christian nationalists, we've gotten here. The Christian nationalists in the United States, in other words, the Republican Party, they want to impose that theocracy. They want to exercise control over people, forcing them to live their lives according to the Christian nationalist belief. I don't care what nonsense anyone believes. If they want to believe that Jesus loves them and things like that, fine, they're welcome to do it. Just don't tell me I've got to accept him as my Lord and Saviour. Right? Don't tell me that I've got to live my life according to their belief. Don't tell me that my niece can't have an abortion if she needs one. Right? The church, the Christian church, has always been about control. And now they've got, in the US particularly, they've got themselves embedded with the Republican Party. They've hijacked the Republican Party, the evangelical Christians, and it's completely destroying the United States democracy right now.
I think one of the points that you made that I thought was really interesting was this reference to national Christianity as being Sharia law. I haven't heard anybody express that view before, and I think it's a really good point that we need to take up. Avery, can you just explain that further to us?
Well, Sharia, it's not Sharia law. That means law, right? Sharia means the law. Christians don't say, oh, we want to impose Sharia or a Christian version of Sharia. They just want to do things like you can't, gays can't get married. A woman, how about a 12-year-old girl who's pregnant because Uncle Billy Bob raped her, can't have an abortion, right? So we're going to force that girl to have a truly dangerous pregnancy and go to term, right? Give birth to that child, and then fuck her. We'll forget all about her. We're not going to give her any support or anything like that. She's on her own. She was a slut. She shouldn't have slept around and things. That is the attitude that the Christo-fascists take, the Christian nationalists. I'll answer questions, yes. So instead of putting the question up on the screen, Tony, if you just read it out. Somebody puts the question up.
Well, someone's just put up, has just asked that, will you answer questions? You've already answered that. As the questions come through, I'll pop them up, Avery, for you, okay?
Yeah.
So pop the questions up. Present Avery with whatever questions you have in mind, and I will monitor them as best as I can and put them up. We've got quite a few people online at the moment, so I'm grateful for that. Whatever comes to mind, pop them up. Avery will deal with them.
I've just seen a comment from Sean. People are scared of the unknown. Delusions will save them. They are scared of the unknown. I admit that, which is a reason why people. That fear is a thing that the church plays on.
Yep.
Right? They'll use that fear of what's going to happen to me when I die to extort people, not necessarily for money. No, it's not. Whoever asked that question, and I've never said it is. It's not okay to kill a baby 1 minute after its birth, and I don't know anybody who's ever said that that's okay.
So we could ask, I guess, Avery, why did you ask that question? Well, is it in association with pro-life? Is that the deal there? Like, what was?
Well, okay.
And if you want to have a question, like you could talk about pro-life from a Christian perspective, or your view of that based on what you understand from Christianity, then perhaps.
Right, pro-life. They're not so-called pro-lifers are not. I'm talking mostly about the United States. There's pro-lifers here who use similar arguments. Well, I'll take that back. They use exactly the same arguments here as they use in the United States. But because we live in a secular country that's got some rational leaders, not necessarily many, but some, we do have abortion laws, for example. That doesn't happen either. Is it okay to kill a baby 1 minute before its birth? That doesn't happen either.
It makes you wonder. Can I just say, Avery, that it does make you wonder under what circumstances do you think women are delivering babies? Why?
I don't know who makes that. Who asked that question? Right?
It was DT, whoever DT is.
Yeah, whoever DT is. That is the sort of bullshit question that comes from the evangelical right.
Yeah.
Evangelical Christians in the United States who have been claiming Democrats want. I mean, I've heard Trump say it live on TV that the Democrats want post-birth abortions. Right? Post-birth abortion is called murder. It's a crime. Right? The evangelical Christians claim there's no evidence for it whatsoever that the Democrats want to have abortions right up to the minute before birth. That's where those questions came from.
Yep. Sorry, Avery. I had to leave my very important. I had to leave my desk for a moment because someone came to the door and my wife wasn't answering it. So I apologise for that.
Okay.
So I'll just have a look. So someone says, all right. So someone has commented to BT's response here, and they've said this. So there are people disagreeing with DT. DT says, yes, it does. So let me bring that one up as well.
Sorry, what? Yes, it does. What does, DT?
I assume that there
people kill babies.
Doesn't matter whether baby's killed before 1 minute before birth or after birth, I guess was the question that was being asked. So
if a baby is killed 1 minute after birth, that is called murder. It's infanticide. It's already a crime.
Yeah.
Right? Do political party people on the left want abortion up to the minute before birth? No, they don't. Now, if she's got evidence that this happens all the time or occasionally, put it up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a question for DT. DT seems to be a bit obsessed by this one, which is fair enough. I'm not arguing that it shouldn't be. There's one up on the screen, Avery, for you now. 79 abortions after 23 weeks here in South Australia in the past 25. It's got 2.5 years. I think it means 25 years. There we go.
So, okay. We've had 79 babies aborted after 23 weeks here in SA in the past 2.5 years. Provide your evidence.
I guess
that assertion. There is no. Where's the evidence that that is true?
Well, I guess
this is the sort of anti-abortion crap that we hear from the evangelical right, Christian right.
Yeah, and I guess the issue here too is, can you produce the medical evidence as to why those abortions took place? There are many reasons why women abort, which have got, which are usually medical reasons, health of the mother, perhaps, or even death of the child in utero. So there are reasons why this happens. If you're going to produce, so I guess what we're saying, Avery, is you're going to produce that information, which is fine, but at least give it some credibility by the evidence associated with it, I guess.
That's the thing. When back on what we're talking about hypocrisy, they talk about right to life. We were saying about pro-birth, and I said they're not. Pro-life. They call themselves, but I said they're not. They're pro-birth. They're pro-birth because they will force the female to go through with a pregnancy that she doesn't want or that's a danger to her life. In the United States, they've had women have died because of that attitude of people like DT there. Right? Women have died because they couldn't have. If they'd gone through with they were forced to go through with the pregnancy and they died. Well, they couldn't get the abortion which they absolutely needed, and so they died in a car outside.
So why does this discussion then around pregnancy, around abortion, why does this become such a coming back to our original topic? Why does this become such a religious issue, do you think?
It was made a religious issue. You ask a Christian, does the Bible say what does the Bible tell you about abortion? And they'll say, oh, God doesn't like abortion. You go and read Numbers 5, they describe how to perform an abortion. Right? If a man suspects his wife has been unfaithful, he takes her to the priest who whips up this concoction, and she's forced to drink it. And if her womb discharges, and then she was unfaithful to him. If it doesn't, she won't. A womb discharging, we call that a miscarriage. Well, we'd either call it a miscarriage if it happened naturally, but if we induce it, we call it an abortion.
Yeah.
The Bible tells you how to perform an abortion. Christians claim to follow the Bible, claim to know the Bible. They don't fucking read it.
Yep, there's an interesting quote here from JP statement. So if people have got questions to ask us, please do so, because we're more likely to take them on board. Medical experts are the only people qualified to make those decisions, not religious institutions. Neither, and I think it's fair to say, Avery, neither are politicians.
No. I mean, I did a video on perspectives about abortion. Right? My view on abortion is they should be rare, but they should be safe. Banning abortion, all that's going to achieve is women dying in. They go back to the good old Republican method of a coat hanger, right? Yeah. What we used to have decades before, before abortion was legalized, it would be abortion. I'm not suggesting that that everybody should. Maybe I am. I would say abortion on demand, because it's not my body, it's her body. If a woman wants an abortion, she should be able to get an abortion, whether I like it or not. Whether DT likes it or not, I don't care whether DT likes it or not. If somebody doesn't want it, then if DT doesn't want an abortion, don't have one.
Yeah.
Right? If she doesn't like gay marriage, don't marry a person of the same gender. I said if she. I don't know whether DT's male or female or
I don't know
intersex.
if you agree with. Don't know if you agree with Dee's comment there.
Discussion about abortion much. Yeah. In the one of the things again about Christianity is women are therefore cooking, cleaning, giving the men in the house sons. Doesn't matter about daughters. We don't care about those, but we can sell them into sexual slavery because the Bible tells us that's okay. They're worth less than the boys, right? So we don't want girls. We want boys. Her job is to cook, clean, and provide those sons. That's the biblical view.
So can you talk a little bit about? Let's talk a little bit about patriarchy and matriarchy and all those other archies. Do you think that that the Bible? I guess the Bible. I don't see the Bible necessarily in some ways. In some ways, I see it as quite progressive. You know, love thy neighbour and all that other sort of stuff. So there's an argument. There's an argument that Jesus was a communist or a socialist, at least, because of some of his attitude towards the lenders and other things and corporations and shit. So, you know, he was a little bit. I've got a few questions to ask you around this. So what's your view around whether Jesus was, well, firstly, whether he was an actual person, whether it's modelled on someone that simply was a good person, you know, healings and turning... well, I don't know which one of those you want to deal with, Avery. But
I'll deal with, was Jesus a real person? I don't see why he wasn't. But I'm going to qualify that. The Jesus in the Bible is fiction, right? The guy walking around, raising the dead, healing the sick, right? Cursing fig trees, and causing pigs to go mad and run across off a cliff. That sort of shit, that is garbage. That guy did not exist. 2,000 years ago, there were hundreds of apocalyptic preachers wandering around the country in the Middle East there. And I've got no doubt that the Jesus that's in the Bible is an agglomeration of all those, well, a bunch of those people, some charismatic preachers that were wandering around and you wrapped them up all into one. That Jesus as well is wholly invented by, or rather Christianity was invented to have whole cloth by Paul. St. Paul, Paul, formerly Saul of Tarsus, he had an epileptic fit or sunstroke in the Judean desert, and he had a vision of Jesus. The Roman soldiers that were with him didn't see this character appearing, and he invented the Christian church out of that. Jesus wasn't there as a ministry. I'm here to create a new church. He wanted people to go back and remember what the old laws were. You know, there's a verse in the Bible talking about not one jot or tittle. Think not I've, what does he says? He basically says, I've come to fulfill the law. The law that he's talking about is the laws in the most reprehensible book ever written, which is Leviticus. Right? It's a disgusting book, that one. But it's the laws in that. Things like, if your son is rude to you, kill him. Death penalty for your son talking back to you. If a guy is picking up sticks on a Sunday, kill him. Right? So if a woman gets raped, kill her.
So my question around all of that, I guess, is that if there are so many contradictions, like what you're talking about in Leviticus and other books of the Bible, particularly the New Testament, and they're at odds, the Old Testament, and they're at odds with the New Testament, how is it that people can actually gather, I guess, an inspired word from the Bible that is actually kind of humanitarian, makes sense, is about, I guess, goodness, and love, as opposed to some of these terrible things that you're talking about? How do people cipher through that, if at all, or don't they even bother to do that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The answer, in my view, is that people don't get that out of the Bible. Firstly, if they go to church, which nowadays is questionable. I think only about 20% of people in Australia attend church every Sunday. In the UK, it's lower. I just saw, I think a couple of days ago they were talking about that.
No, they go to protests and rallies.
Yeah.
That's the church for them. It's becoming our church too, incidentally.
Yeah. People don't read the Bible. And because they don't read the Bible, they don't know what it says. They think that Jesus said love thy neighbor, and that he originated it. He didn't. They think that Jesus said that he came to bring peace on earth. He didn't. He says so. I think it's Matthew 24. He says, think not I came to bring peace on earth. Rather I came with a sword. I came to set father against son, mother against daughter, brother against sister. Right? He who loves their brother or their father or their mother or their brother or their sister or themselves more than they love me is not worthy of me. Right? That is not a religion of love. He is not talking about love. He's talking about loving him, not each other. Right?
So that brings up another question I've often wondered about, which I'll ask you now, is if that is the case, if there is there are those statements made by a God, who are they actually made by?
If they're made by people.
Yeah, but who are the, I guess, who historically do you think are the people that are making those sorts of statements?
They were the Bible was written by semi-literate, pre-scientific, desert-dwelling warmongers. Those warmongers were racist, misogynist. The book, their God, right, matches the people. Right? You look at the gods that have been invented today. Scientology, right? The God matches what the people are like: greedy, money hungry. There was no voice from on high. There was no guy that came down on a mountain and dictated 10 commandments to Moses, right? And then dictated another 10, and then a third version of 10. Some people believe in aliens and the Earth is flat. You mean the Earth isn't? Oh God. Yeah.
So the Earth's not flat. That's a surprise.
The Earth's not flat. Yeah. Wow. That's a revelation. You've been around it a few times.
So I guess what I'm asking is where kind of have those ideas? What has been the germination of those ideas, and why have they become so prevalent and dominant in our society? Given that they, in your view, I'm not going to argue this with you or not because I don't have a view, but whether they are, where they come from, how did they become so dominant?
Somebody said it right very early on. It's fear of the unknown. Right, people. That's what drives. I think that's what drove our primitive ancestors to it. They didn't have the knowledge that we've got. Right, there isn't a. They would hear a noise in the night, and they've got to be worried because that could be a leopard. Right, people have got humans. They assign agency to everything. We're pattern-seeking animals. So we'll imagine yourself 10,000 years ago, right? You're living in a hunter-gatherer society, and you're wandering through the plains, the savannas in Africa, and you hear a rustle in the grass. That rustle could be the wind, or it could be a leopard. So you've got two choices. You can either ignore that rustle in the grass, or you can run away. If you ignore the rustle in the grass, and it's a leopard, you turn into leopard shit because it's going to kill you and eat you. If you run away and it was just the wind, well, okay, run away from a bit from the wind, but you're safe. People assign agency to that noise. They don't know what it is, but they assign agency to it. They see they're sitting outside and they see this flash of lightning and they don't know what that is. I can't do that. There must be somebody, there must be an agent more powerful than I am that can do that. They see that lightning hit a tree, and I'm going back tens of thousands of years. They see that lightning hit a tree, and all of a sudden there's fire. I can't make fire. I know what it is. It burns. It really hurts. It can kill people and other animals and things like that. I don't know what it is. I can't make that. Must be somebody upstairs who's up there, because that's where it originated. Much more powerful than me.
I thought about look at that.
Christ was a scene very different. The Sadducees and Pharisees, the Essenes were the first followers of Jesus Christ, and they were Gnostics. Who was it? Elaine something, I can't remember. There's a woman wrote a book called Jesus the Man. I can't remember her name, and it was a really good book, and she describes why she believes he was an Essene. The Essenes, it tells you in the or Christians will tell you they were a group of monks that lived over at Qumran, and they had absolutely nothing to do with Judaism, and that they were all followers of Jesus, and there was no men, no women or children there. And yet, when archaeologists have been to Qumran and excavated the place, they found the skeletons in cemeteries of children and women. So the stories that we hear about the Essenes, gleaned from the Bible and other books, aren't necessarily accurate. But I have heard that Jesus was an Essene.
Right, you might be interested in this one too, Avery. Just pop that up. So you might like to talk about the Noah story. I thought you'd like that.
Yeah. Okay. Noah's Ark story is for kids. It's a terrible story for kids, because they tell you about how God saved this old man and his wife and their 3 sons and their wives and all these nice animals. They don't tell you about all the millions of bloated corpses floating around in the water. That would be men, women, children, babies, chickens, kittens, puppies. They didn't tell you about all that lot. Now, how the hell would that boat move? There's lots of arguments I could give you about why we can be absolutely 100% certain that Noah's Ark story is garbage.
I just had a thought, which is really bizarre. Don't want to make this political at this particular point in time, but it's a bit like trying to tell the world that it's the same story about Israel protecting itself but ignoring the tens of thousands of Palestinians that have been killed. When you spoke about that, it kind of reminded me of how we want to tell a story, but we want to ignore all the devastation that story does tell us about the people that they're actually not talking about, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. See, the D's asked the question, do I make a distinction between the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian scriptures? They are, it depends what you're referring to. Are you including the, that's the question. Is D referring to the Talmud or the Torah? The Torah is basically the Old Testament. The Talmud is all the extra writings that have been done around it. All the, a rabbi sitting down and writing down what he thinks that particular verse in Jeremiah was all about. So it depends on exactly what.
So what is the difference?
The difference is that the Torah is the Old Testament. It's the Old Testament, and the Talmud is commentaries. All right, now Dee's qualified yet. She's talking about the Old Testament versus the New Testament. Firstly, you asked what's the Torah is the Old Testament. The Talmud is commentaries on the Old Testament, which is extra, I'll say, biblical writing by rabbis long after the Torah itself was written. Do I discriminate do I make a distinction between the Hebrew script, the Old Testament and the New Testament? In some ways, yes, but really it's a continuation of really the New Testament.
I'll put it back up. Sorry,
I'm trying to think how to phrase this. The Old Testament and the New Testament makes it sound as though the Old Testament was written, and then a few years later somebody decided to do an update, right? And
are you saying that the New Testament is a reflection on the Old Testament, but just version 2.0 or something?
No.
But isn't the Old Testament really the history of the Jewish people?
The Old Testament is claimed to be the history of the Jewish people, right? Some of it is factually correct. Some of it is being shown to be true, but an awful lot of it is there's no justification for it at all. What was the thing I was just going to...
We were talking about the distinction between the two.
The Old Testament and the New, talking about it like that makes it sound as though somebody wrote the Old Testament and then 10 years later, 20 years later, they said, oh, we better do an update. And so they do the update, and this is now the New Testament. It makes it sound that way. The Bible was written over a space of about 1,500 years by... In the case of the Old Testament, we don't know a single author. And in the case of the New Testament, we only know the authorship of about 12 or 13 of the books, because they're all written by Paul. All the rest, we don't know who wrote them. Oh, sorry, we know who wrote the author of Batshit Crazy, the Book of Revelation. That was John the Divine. We know that one. But... things like who wrote them.
I laughed. The book of Batshit Crazy. I think that's a great way of describing Revelations. Anybody's ever read it?
Yeah, absolutely it is. The Old Testament and the New Testament. Christians will tell you, oh, the New Testament is a new covenant with Jesus, with God, right? The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says in the New Testament. Yeah, I wouldn't even say Windows 95 there. I'd say that the Old Testament is more like MS-DOS.
Yeah. Fair enough.
COBOL, go back even further. Christians think that the New Testament is, they'll say, oh, it's a new covenant with God, but no, the Bible doesn't say this is a new covenant. Jesus doesn't say, forget what my dad said, in his autobiography in book 1, about it's okay to keep slaves, right? If you fancy this woman but she doesn't fancy you, just rape her, then she's got to marry you. Jesus doesn't come in and say that was wrong. What Dad said then was wrong. This is what's moral. It's not right to keep slaves. It's not right to rape a woman. He doesn't say any of that shit. He completely ignores it. He says that I am here to fulfill the law. And the fulfillment of the law is to make sure that everybody's following the Mosaic law, right? Which is keep slaves. If you rape a woman, you've got to marry her. If you see somebody working on Sunday, kill them. Right? What's the? I want to go back to something you asked. Somebody said about Jesus was like a communist. Was he a good guy? Yes, he's a communist in some ways, because he does talk about a level playing field in some ways for society, feeding the poor, healing the sick. Freely was given to you, freely you should give. That if somebody from another country comes in, a foreigner comes in, treat them well. That's what it says in the Bible. Christians, particularly in the United States, ignore that. Right? We've got a lot of so-called Christians in this country that ignore that as well. You know, they talking about that person because they're from, you know, Pakistan or somewhere, or Afghanistan or Somalia or somewhere like that, and they don't like them because they're different.
Oh, I was wondering, Avery, if we need to finish shortly. So I was just wondering whether you could make a comparison, if you wouldn't mind, between Christian beliefs, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, perhaps, if it fits, and then draw up a conclusion to end this conversation, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, you can't really compare Hinduism with the Abrahamic faiths. I mean, they're all fantasies. Right? It doesn't matter what the religion is. There is no evidence anywhere for any god. But you can't. Let's say you can't compare the Hinduism with the Abrahamic ones because they've got different roots.
But can you compare the beliefs to some extent, though?
Well, yeah, okay. If by that you mean, do they believe in gods? Yes. Right? Do they believe in angels and demons? Yes. They're similar in that sort of way. Right? There's things about Hinduism, about the Hindu gods, that are much more realistic than the. And I'm not talking about the fact they believe in monkey-headed gods or elephant-headed gods or anything like that, but there's certain things, certain aspects of Hinduism which make more sense because they talk in realistic numbers. You ask the average evangelical Christian in the United States how old the earth is, they're going to tell you, 6,000 to 10,000 years. You ask a Hindu who's read the Bhagavad Gita, how old is the universe, and they're going to tell you that it's, you know, billions and billions of years old. They're not basing that on modern science. They're basing it on the Bhagavad Gita. It is the Bhagavad Gita tells us it is truly ancient. Aussie Titan, I just, you know, yeah. I don't know if you want to put Aussie Titan's comment up. Praying is like something. I agree with that. That's the one. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a quote worth holding on to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one that I've used before.
So what about some? What about just a conclusion? How would you like people to be left thinking about this subject, Avery?
What I would like people to do, right? I mean, in an ideal world for me, there would be no religion. Imagine no religion. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, and above us only sky. Right? That would be an ideal for me. But in the real world, what I would want people to do, if they believe in God, think about it. Is it justified? Is your belief just? Can you provide? This is a challenge I've offered thousands of times when I've been in debating in forums and that, debating person to person. Can a person who believes in God, that includes anybody that's watching right now or that does watch this, can they provide one fact that is demonstrably true, that points to one conclusion, and one conclusion only, and that conclusion is that God is real? And the answer, and no matter how many times I've put that question, all I've ever got is crickets. No response whatsoever, because they can't do it. Right? If anybody that could provide that one piece of evidence that demonstrably true, that proved that God existed, they'd be up for the Nobel Prize. Even if Donald Trump did it, he'd get the Nobel Prize. Right? But they can't do it. There was one other thing I wanted to say, and I've forgotten what it was. So
I suppose it's that one message.
No, I know what it was.
You got it?
The thing is to think about your belief. Is it based in reality? Think about it. You know, and if you happen to end up saying, oh yeah, I can't really justify this belief, then you shouldn't believe it. Right? I want, what I care about are my beliefs true? If they're not true, I'm not going to believe it. Religion just show respect for the other person. That's all that matters. Respect. A question. I've got to ask this question for JP. Should I respect somebody who disrespects me? Right? It tells me that I'm evil because I don't believe in their God.
Yeah, well, I often said I don't believe in forgiveness because if someone harms me, why should I forgive them? I may choose not to have anything to do with them, but it seems to be unChristly or ungodlike or unreligious to not forgive somebody for some reason. But that doesn't mean I can't demonstrate respect for people, that I can't believe in listening to and understanding other people is something of value. I can be anti-war. I can be a pacifist, and I would suggest that a lot of those qualities, Avery, that one would choose to express, those humanitarian type qualities, have far greater value than do some of the more radical, well, they definitely do, than the radical Christian views.
Yeah.
Or the radical Islam views.
Yeah.
Or whatever you like to call them.
I've just remembered something else about the hypocrisy of Christians. In the United States, the pro-life movement are also the ones that are pro-execution. Right? Pro the death penalty.
So is that your final thought? You're going to leave us with?
Oh, no, I've got plenty more I could throw in there, but
well, just give us one final thought. Would be great.
The thing I'll leave you with is what I said just a minute ago. On a couple of things. Don't think that if a Christian if I will defend the right of anybody. You can believe, I will defend the right of anybody to believe what they want. If somebody wants to believe in an invisible anthropomorphic sky genie who fathered a son, who then died, got tortured to death to forgive us our sins, right? If they want to believe that, I will defend that right. Right? Just don't tell me I've got to believe that bullshit as well.
Yeah.
Right?
And I guess that's the fundamental belief you're talking about, isn't it? Is that you don't want other people to impose their beliefs on you, and unfortunately, sometimes those beliefs wind up being, legitimised through legislation. They become codified in some bizarre way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who might think that our legislation is based on the Ten Commandments or on the Bible in any way, you better pray to whatever God you believe in that it isn't based on that, because if it was, we would be living in a tyranny.
Yeah, good point. But, thou shalt not kill seems to be forgotten.
Thou shalt not...
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Go on.
Yeah, exactly.
The Ten Commandments. Right? What book do you find the Ten Commandments in? Which book in the Bible? The answer is, people will point at Exodus 20, but Exodus 20 doesn't say this is the Ten Commandments. There's another version later on in Exodus. There's one in Deuteronomy, which is different. There's one in Leviticus, which is different. And in Exodus, only 14 chapters later, there's another list, which is completely different. And that says, these are my 10 commandments. And if you want to know how stupid the God of the Bible is, there's fucking 11 of them.
So we could say there's been some upgrades, but not necessarily improving the original, maybe.
Yeah. Many more, like any upgrade, bugs were introduced.
Well, thanks, Avery. It's been a very lively discussion. A number of people have come on board over time. And I'll just finish. So thanks, mate. Really do appreciate it. We might have to do it again, depending on public demand.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So thanks, everybody, for being with us. Just remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. And if you know of anybody who's got a topic to talk about that's of interest, that you think would be of interest to us, let us know. Let me know. I had someone contact me the other day and I'm doing an interview with them on Monday. I think it won't be live, but I will be posting that interview. So it's not non-political, and it will be of value, I think. So please subscribe to my channel. Keep an eye on that. So I will be doing a playlist of all the interviews that I do. You don't have to be famous, that's for sure, to be on my show. Look, I'm here and I'm not. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. In the meantime, just look after yourselves.
If you like what I have to say, please hit like, subscribe and ring that notification bell. Comments, positive and negative, are welcome. Add them below and I'll do my best to respond. Thank you.